Somebody who's trying to figure it out. It's never too late, never too early. Now's the time to go to prayer, go to the word, seek him, and don't expect your ears to be tickled, but instead root yourself in that truth. And then the next step is much easier after you figure that part out. And I've had people that said, this is what I'm going to do. And they've taken that advice and they've prayed and they come back and said, I don't think I'm supposed to do this. I can't even tell you how comforting that should be to you, that you didn't go down this path. Because filmmaking and the film industry it's like a vortex, right? It can just draw you in and it's consuming. And pretty soon you're spending your life thinking about it, and it can eat you up, but it can also be extremely rewarding if this is where God has you.
Position can be one of those things that I think creates anxiety, it creates fear, but God constantly is reminding us to not be afraid because we can trust him. And I was convicted of this. I did an event with Colton Dixon recently, and I was telling him how much his new song, Build a Boat, meant to me, because that song, there's a line in it that talks about building a boat in the sand when there was no rain. And in my prayer time one day, I really felt God asking me, Scott, could I trust you to build a boat in the sand if it hadn't rained?
Wow.
Noah trusted God because he said, Noah, I want you to do this. And Noah didn't question. He did it because he trusted God, because he knew God. He had a relationship with God. And I think if we're finding our place in a constant place of, anxiety, I mean, we're all going to have anxious moments, no doubt. I mean, God knew that. That's why he always reminds us, don't be afraid. Trust me. I'm going to take care of you. But I think so often, if that's our focal point, it's all about me, then we put ourselves in this place where, we're God.
God showing me, you know what I sound like, you know my voice. And if it's a small thing like this or a huge thing, like where to move to start a church, my voice sounds the same. If you can swim in the shallow end, you can swim in the deep end. You can swim in the middle of the ocean. Swimming's the same thing. Even if it feels like the stakes are higher and deeper beneath you, swimming is the same thing.
These are dreams that I have. I'm going to put them in your hands and follow peace and follow your directions for my life. I don't just want you to co-sign what I want to do. I want to literally acknowledge you in all my ways, Proverbs 3:6, and then let you direct my path. And I was like, okay, God, you've got my heart. You've got my yes. If you're going to open this opportunity for me to work at a gym, I'll use this for ministry. And maybe I'll get on this TV show and use that for ministry.
I remember this one summer that it was just a really challenging summer of just, God, where are you in so many levels? And I was teaching fitness at the time. So I was teaching early, like 5 a.m. classes. So I would be done working by like 10 a.m. And it was the summer. So I'd have the whole day to just like sit in like what I felt was the misery of existence. But that summer is like, I grew in my relationship with the Lord so much over like the course of 3 or 4 months, and experienced such a deep level of intimacy with the Lord that I had never experienced before. And actually through that had written a number of devotionals that got to share with a wealth of other people of like, this literally took blood, sweat, and tears. Like my tears are over all of these words for other people to experience. And had I not been through that really, really hard place, I also wouldn't be able to experience knowing what it's like to need God as much as I needed air. And, I think I actually look at some of my heroes of faith, and those are the people that have gone through the hardest things and still say that God is faithful. And it's so beautiful.
Trusting God through the mystery, trusting God through the difficulty, trusting God through the unanswered questions, the dark nights of the soul, trusting God through tragedy, all the things that are going to come our way. That being of good cheer isn't some pie in the sky, nice little proverbial statement Jesus makes. It's divinely possible through the power of the Holy Spirit.
You did. You chose me. You called me. You brought me through a lot of stuff to get here.
It literally is the seemingly insignificant moments every single day that add up to the glamorous moments we dream about.
Are you operating from a place of anxiety or peace? And if there's any form of anxiety, there's an invitation for more work to do with God.
We are all in transition. I think God works wonders when we invite him into middle seat moments of our life, especially when we're tired, especially when we're worn down, especially when we can't see straight, especially when we feel confused or dismayed. I think that's when God works the most. Like,
we want one tiny little raisin. God's like, listen, first of all, that's a shriveled piece of fruit. I want you to have the entire vine of grapes, right? That's our God.
God allows us to experience the extraordinary so that we can stay awake in the ordinary.
He doesn't waste one thing. There is not one part of our story, one part of the not yet that he will waste.
Here is my yes. I'm giving you my yes on the front end. Whatever you have for me, it's a yes.
God is still God, and God is still your father and protector. And he, El Roy, the God that sees. Oh, that totally gets me through everything, right? El Roy, the God who sees me where I am. Ugly, not ugly, beautiful, whatever that is today, right? And that moment today, because what today is not tomorrow.
If you are waiting and you're sold out to the Lord and you believe that your life is his, you're set apart, but not aside. But when we're set apart, it's a place of preference. And if you're waiting, you're not set aside, you're set apart. And he's got gifts that are set apart for you. And you'll see later how perfectly timed they really were.
He talks to all of us all the time. He's pursuing everyone from day one. We just want you to learn how to love God, because I'm confident that once you abide in the love of God and you're in that place, everything is going to change. And it's like, I don't have to be afraid of cleaning you up or your mess. Like, I'm confident that if you meet Jesus, if we get you in a room with him, you're going to leave different.
Oftentimes the place between gives you space to hear from the Spirit. And as uncomfortable as it is, like, I went from having sermons to prep every week and meetings every week to having nothing. Like, there was nothing on my calendar. And it was a super uncomfortable feeling. And yet from that silence and stillness came a brand new idea.
Keep seeing God. He has this pattern of meeting the brokenhearted, of meeting and healing the deepest hurts. I mean, I've made films in genocide-torn countries and seen the hope of Jesus brighter there than in the flashiest sanctuary here in the States.
Be reminded that God is present with you, and then God is in the journey with you, and God has not left you. God has not abandoned you. God has not forsaken you. God is present with you. And to know that wherever you are, that God is in the midst of doing something. You are in the space in between. And in this place, God is doing something that he will not do in the next season.
I'll walk into the facility and I'll see this big tattooed thug dude that, has done some stuff with this big smile on his face. And I'm like, what's going on? He's like, dude, I was in worship last night and the light went on. And like, I don't know what happened necessarily, but like Jesus stepped into my darkness. And like, I know I'm going to be okay.